Hello, Rob. Welcome to Connections for Life. How are you today, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Great.
Rob.
What's
How are
going
you?
on, Rob?
Good to see
Glad to be here.
you. Glad to
You don't
have
have
you.
to lie on air. That's okay.
Man, start out really
I'm lying.
incredible.
So, I first and foremost, I want to say thanks for coming on this show. You know, we really do appreciate people taking the time to come on our show. I know that you're no stranger to doing these. You did a show with Coffee with Jim and James not too long ago.
Infamous lost episode.
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
So my first question, I'm going to change it up a little bit, is so just tell us why our show is better.
I'll let you know once it broadcasts.
I love it.
Fair enough.
We weren't gonna broadcast.
We're posting this tomorrow morning just to make sure we don't mess it up.
There we go.
No, in all seriousness, we kind of start everybody off in the same place. And just how did you get your start in the industry, and how did you get to kind of where you are today?
Oh, how much time you have?
The Zoom allows us like 8 hours of continuous recording.
We won't go that long. I guess the question depends on which industry. I am, unlike probably a lot of your guests, I am really of the association industry.
Right.
I happen to run an association that is in the natural gas construction industry, but my background is been association management. I went to LSU, grew up in New Orleans, went to LSU, graduated, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Was working for my dad, who had a tourism magazine in the city. Did that for a while. Working for Dad gave me the opportunity to do some advanced work or some campaign work for the Reagan Bush campaign in 1984. Awesome. So dating myself a little bit, and
I was one.
The vice president was coming to town, George Bush, and drove in the motorcade. And then Nancy Reagan came to town for the World's Fair, and I drove in her motorcade. And I said, "Hey, man, I'm experienced. How do I get to do this?" And I met the lead advance guy for the White House, and said, "How do I do this?" And so had a phone interview with a guy in DC, and 2 weeks later, I was in Oklahoma City doing an event for Bush. I did stuff for Bush and Reagan for the next 3 years, and just loved the event planning aspect of it. The fact that you plan it, it starts, it operates, it ends, and it's over, and then you go on to the next one.
Did you ever get, sorry to interrupt, did you ever get the opportunity, obviously, to meet them and talk to them at any length or anything?
I actually did. Yeah, I met all four of them: Nancy, Ronald, Nancy, George, and Barbara.
Who's your favorite?
All at different times.
Who's your favorite?
I gotta love Reagan, but George Bush was just as cool as could be. All four of them were wonderful.
Good people.
And,
I had a question. I had a question too, off topic, Rob. And it's something I think we skipped over before. I didn't notice. You grew up in New Orleans. I don't know anybody that grew up in New Orleans. And you have zero accent, which is weird to me too. Like, what's that experience like growing up in New Orleans? Like, do you go down? Do you frequent those places if you grew up there? Like the
I grew up in Bourbon Street, and there's the swinging legs in the window out there. I don't know if that's still there. No, I grew. Growing up in New Orleans was fabulous. I loved it. It was a great experience. Of course, I didn't know any different.
Sure.
I didn't know what was good and what was bad until I got older and decided that it was time to get out of the city and move to Dallas. I had some friends here and came up here, but growing up was a blast. And I still have family down there. My mom lived in the same house that I basically moved in when I was 3 until 2 years ago, when she passed away at 97 years old.
Wow.
So it was a blast. It really was. It's a fun city. I love New Orleans.
Is it true? Do you eat like a lot of alligator and stuff down there? Like, is that like
You do
crawdads? Yeah, I don't know.
Crawfish are the best. Yeah,
I've been there one time, and I was like, I was there for a show like years ago. It was like,
we used to have crawfish boil. I went to LSU and was in a fraternity, so you had crawfish boils all the time. But awesome.
Are you doing okay after this weekend?
You what?
Are you doing okay after this weekend? Being in LSU?
My family was out of power for a while.
Wait a minute.
No, I meant after
You're talking about the hurricane. He's talking about LSU losing the football.
Losing to UCLA was not one of their high points. But you know what? We will always have 2019. We will always have Joe Burrow undefeated national championship for as long as I live, and I'll hold on to that one. Last year was a washout. This year didn't start promising, but we'll hope. We always have hope.
Cool.
I'm more disappointed in Drew Brees retiring, frankly. But
yeah, That's tough. I mean, he's kind of like an icon, right? Like, I mean, I'm 44 and I don't remember Drew Brees not playing professional
Yeah,
football.
20 years. And
Yeah,
he's
that's
done
crazy.
so much, there's so much for the city, especially after Katrina. And he's still down there. So I think he's broadcasting for NBC this year.
Is that where he lives? Does he still live down?
He lives down in New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So to more serious
He's probably
topics.
got 5 or 6 houses, knowing
Right.
what he was making.
He's got a Monday house, a Tuesday house. Yeah.
Exactly.
But like I was gonna say, in more serious topics, we're kind of getting off topic a little bit. But how is it down there? Like since the hurricane, is power back on? Or things moving again?
No, I mean, the power is not back on. And that was this was a Cat 4 that hit the city. I mean, it just grazed the western side of the city. Katrina was actually a Category 3.
But it hit right on, right?
But it hit right on, and it wasn't the storm. In fact, if you remember, at
The levees breaking, right?
after the next day, people were going, "Hey, we dodged the bullet," until the levees broke. You had, a barge hit the levee, and a couple other levees got topped, and that flooded the city. This one had no flooding. It was more wind related. It knocked a huge transmission tower from Energy out, which took 8 substations out with it. And so they're slowly getting the power back on. My family was without power for, two of my brothers moved out, or one brother moved out, one stayed. My middle brother has a son. He left town as well. But my oldest brother stayed, and but they had a house, they had a generator.
So I had a question.
I wouldn't do it without a generator.
I had a question about that because I read an article the other day that they said that there's a big natural gas power station that they put in, right? Like a big generation facility, and that got knocked offline, an energy property, I believe, or something like that. I don't know all the details, but that was supposed to be the fail-safe. If everything else kind of failed, that would be the thing that kept going, and it didn't.
Yeah, I don't think it was natural. I think it was nuclear. They've got a big nuclear plant south of the city, and they turned it off because of the storm. I don't know. Not living down there. In Dallas, we deal with the freeze that happens on Valentine's Day. And no power for unfortunately we had power, but a lot of people didn't for a long time.
Man, Rob, hang on, Joe. I'm yelling at you because you've taken this way down in the whole.
I'm just curious. I mean, you don't hear much, but what's on the news about what's actually happening, like boots on the ground. So I was just kind of curious.
Yeah,
he's in Dallas.
Things are coming back slowly. I saw a map today that things are slowly coming back online in New Orleans, but it's been a week now, so that's a long
crazy.
time. And
I can't imagine a week. So essentially, we'll get back to kind of what
our normal schedule.
Our regular schedule programming. That was a commercial.
All this out, right?
No, we'll leave that. So what exactly do you guys do? The Distribution Contractors Association. What do you wake up and do every day? I guess as an organization.
DCA. All right. So DCA we're celebrating our 60th anniversary. So it was formed by several contractors in the Midwest, primarily for labor negotiation reasons, collective bargaining. PLCA is about 15 years older than we are. They're the mainline pipeline contractor association. They do the big transmission lines, the Keystone and DAPL and Appalachian, all these lines you hear on the news. Once the line hits the town border station, the pressure drops, it becomes distribution. And so there's 2.5 million miles of natural gas pipeline in the country. About 300,000 of that is transmission. The rest of it, the 2.2 million miles, is distribution. And that's all the gas lines that come to the homes and businesses.
That's crazy.
Like that. And that's what our guys do.
So
our guys put the lines in the ground.
Of all the pipelines in the country, like mileage wise, the transmission is a fraction of the distribution pipeline.
Right, in the gas pipeline world.
In gas.
I mean, there's water
insane.
and sewer and all those other pipes as well. And but yeah, the distribution is huge. And it's small diameter, it's short jobs, it's not these big spreads that go across country, but it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of workforce. We have 95-ish contractors, and then about 130 associate members, of which you guys are part of that group.
Yes, we are.
And so I run the association. I've got a staff here in Dallas that takes care of the day-to-day operations, and so we put on we have our annual meeting beginning of the year, February, March, sometimes. We have our safety congress in March, sometimes. We have our mid-year meeting in July, and then we have a fall meeting in October. And of course, all that kind of came to a screeching halt after our convention in 2020 in Boca Raton, and until this year.
When was that conference?
Huh?
When was that conference in 2020?
February, mid-February of 2020.
So it was like a month before.
Yeah, I got back
went,
like the 22nd or 23rd of February, I think.
Yeah, I left there. I had a meeting in DC, and I came back, and I went to ConExpo.
Yes.
And left ConExpo on that Friday the 13th, and that was it.
Yeah, that was like when everything kind of screeched to a halt that week,
Yeah.
that March 13th, 14th timeframe.
Yeah.
So you're, just correct me if I'm wrong, you're the executive VP of DCA?
Yeah, that's that. I have fun with this with my board. Yeah, I mean, I'm the chief executive of the association. I don't have the CEO title. We do our staff. I have that title, and then the board chair is the president.
Gotcha.
So you guys just did interview Ben Nelson a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Ben is currently the president of DCA.
Gotcha.
So president, and then we're vice president.
But you said Ben doesn't do anything, and you have to.
Yeah,
do
but
it
that's
all.
what you said before. When we were on camera, you said he doesn't do anything.
Ben works hard.
I'm just kidding.
Ben, look,
I'm not part of that
I want to
association with
clarify.
them right there.
Now, Ben's been a great, and all the board has. It's been a tough year. With COVID and all we have made so many changes to our event sites. We've canceled this year. We were supposed to be in Hawaii, then Scottsdale in February. Then we moved it to Orlando in July. We've canceled probably 8-10 meetings, and we're talking major contracts with hotels.
Yeah.
We have 400, 500, 600 people at our events. And Ben and the board have been huge supporters and helped support us through that process of making all these logistical changes.
I was going to ask you what, I mean, again, like your business is predicated right on getting people together, right? I mean, that's a huge part of what you do, and getting like-minded individuals to these locations to be able to idea share and train and have seminars and things like that. What was that most difficult transition or change for you through COVID? Was it changing the venues, or was it canceling things? I mean, it must have been very difficult because the entire way that you guys operated and the reason that you existed just kind of went.
Well, I did, and it was trying to transition from, and you're right, the association world is networking. I mean, that's if you ask any association in the world, what's the number one purpose? It's networking. It's that face-to-face, in-person, getting together and networking. And you can't do that on Zoom. I mean, Zoom is great for this. A 4-person, even a board.
We have 400 people on here.
400 people on. We had a meeting the other day that had 75 people on it and on Zoom, and it fortunately it was more of a presentation than an interaction. But it's crazy. Half the people are cameras are off, and you don't know if they're sleeping or if they're actually there. But the hardest thing was making those changes and the financial aspects of them, and where do you go, how do you do it, and the biggest obvious challenge has been the unknown. You don't know what tomorrow holds.
Right.
You don't know when this will turn, and once you think it's going to turn, and it's fine. We were fortunate to have our meeting in Orlando when we did. Because a week later the cases started spiking from the Delta variant. So now Delta's kind of fading in some areas, and Mu is the next one up. Who knows what's around the corner? So you just got to.
What's the next alphabet letter? What is it?
Well, yeah. So,
Theta. We got Theta variant coming.
Lambda.
Lambda. So
That's
Rob,
fine.
talking through some of that stuff, why don't you just tell us like what your day looks like? Could you do that? What's an average day look like for you as the?
It changes. I mean, it's they call association management and meeting management herding cats, and it is. It's trying to get everything keep the train moving down the track, and especially when the track starts wobbling all over the place like it has last year. So we've got, we're constantly, we've kept putting out our newsletter. We put out electronic newsletters. We did webinars. We did, Zoom meetings and things like that. So there's really no day to day. I mean, it really is. And it's one of the great things about it is it changes every day. And there's always something new popping up.
Sure.
We've
Got to
got,
make it fun to work there.
yeah, to me, it's a blast because it's not your normal 9 to 5 grind. I mean, we've got a lot of issues going on with labor right now that we're working through. So we're having a lot of phone calls on that. We've got issues, you know, again, trying to figure out where next year's convention is because we're supposed to be in Cancun. And I'm getting a lot of.
I gotta start going to these events.
Going to Mexico in February is probably not the best idea given the COVID and where it is now. So we're looking at other venues, you know, and just constantly keeping the association relevant. You know, we do a lot on the workforce front. We've changed the HDD committee to the trenchless committee, so we're really expanding the scope of that area.
Government affairs
A
relations.
lot on government affairs,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know, and we can't do the fly-ins that we normally do. So we've got you know, Evan Wyman's a great staff support on government relations, but he can't go on Capitol Hill. So
Right.
We'll be
No, we-
talking with Evan and Zach on Friday.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. No, they're great. Zach's wonderful, and then Evan, I hired Evan 10 years ago now
Wow.
to do this. Our government relations committee used to hand out the directory of Congress and say, if you have a problem, call somebody. So that was pretty much the extent of the efforts 10 years ago. And then I convinced them to hire a government relations specialist. We hired Evan, and it's taken off since there. So we've got that. We've got what I'm missing: safety and risk management. We do a safety congress every year. We give out a lot of safety awards and really, you know, push. Safety is such a huge thing. And
Yeah.
you know, pipeline safety management, the OQ process that we've got, we started 4 years ago now, and it's developed into its own little mini association that we're working on OQ and how to operate qualifications and how to improve that process and make it more portable, which is a nasty word up in the Northeast apparently, but ever since Merrimack Valley, they don't like the word portal. Yeah, there's just a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire, and we're constantly juggling those lumps of coal.
Yeah, I have to imagine, like, I know you've hosted events, as you'd mentioned, you were going to go Hawaii, you got Cancun, and I'm sure there's a ton on the list that you've been to in different parts of the world. There's got to be a place that was just your absolute favorite, the one that you went, that was the one I'll remember. That was my show that really was the cool one for me. Is there one story or one location that reminds you of
in my career? Or
sure. I don't.
Okay. Well, so in DCA, I'll say it was New Orleans. I was able to convince our president that year to go to he was from north of New Orleans, Hammond, and I said let's do New Orleans, and we did it the week before Mardi Gras, and
that's cool.
It was a blast. It was a great time to be there. It was a lot of fun, and it was great for me because it was my hometown. I could show off the real New Orleans and not just the Bourbon Street aspect of it. My family was in attendance at the opening keynote. We had Rob O'Neill, who was the guy who shot bin Laden. At the time we booked him, we didn't know who he was. I mean, we knew he was a Navy SEAL guy, and we knew he was involved in it, but we didn't know what his role was. And I got a call from the Speakers Bureau saying you can't advertise anything about what he's done. But anyway, that was fun. But in my career, you know, I worked for, after I worked for the White House, I worked for Young Presidents Organization, YPO.
Yep.
And YPO is an international association of men and women who became president before they turned 40, and they go out when they turn 50. So I was the chief executive on the staff of a committee. We had a staff group, and then there was a committee of 8 to 10 couples that were members. And so that group formed sort of a board where we planned the events, and the events would run between $3 and $6 million for a week. The last event I did was in Ireland. It was $6.5 million for 1 week. Quite a budget, quite a logistical challenge. But the fun part about it was that I did one in New York City. My chairman was Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank fame.
Yeah.
So I got to know Barbara pretty well, and our
Can
keynote.
you get her on the show?
Yeah. Ask if she wants to come.
We're going to ask for references.
Yeah, that was going to be a reference one. Maybe this person will go.
Our keynotes for that event were Jack Welch, Barbara Walters, James Carville, Larry King, and Donald Trump.
That's
No
unreal.
kidding.
Or Monday through Friday keynotes.
That was $6 million.
$6.5 million.
Right.
Really, the only one that cost us money was Larry King. And that was a huge fight within the organization about paying Larry King $50,000.
Yeah.
And nowadays, $50,000
He wouldn't even show up.
Well, I'll tell you the first one I got to.
I would for 50
attend
grand.
down-
I'll show up.
Yeah,
Every
Joe'll
time.
be there for $550. Joe'll show up.
For a happy meal.
Pay for his bar tab. He's in. But the first one I got to attend, the first speaker was Rudy Giuliani. And then, we had Mike Rowe, and there was a whole bunch that week. Who else was there?
Yeah. Mike was kind of a surprise that week, but we
He
had
was.
Rudy. Can't remember who the other one was. We
The
have fun picking the speakers.
Yeah.
How do you come on? How is Mike Rowe a surprise the week of? Does he just happen to be at the place?
He showed up.
There's a funny story for that one, but you can't tell it on air.
All right,
Then never mind.
Save that for post air.
Mike and I've gotten to know Mike pretty well over the last couple of years, but he did it as a favor,
That's awesome.
and sort of it kind of leads to our workforce efforts. Is we've been really pushing the workforce. We had Mike speak at Dana Point 3 years ago. I got to know Mike over a couple bottles of bourbon.
It's always a good way.
One night, I think.
What? Sounds like a
over
long
time. And then so he spoke at that convention. We ended up, and I pitched him an idea for a show, which evolved over time and became 6 Degrees, which is on Discovery Channel.
Oh, wow.
So I asked Mike if he would, come to DCA and kind of promote the show, and he said, if you can get me there, I'll be there. So we got him there, and he
Got him a Greyhound bus ticket.
a Greyhound bus with a big red M on the side of it. Operations name out of Wisconsin. But they got him down there, and he came on stage and spoke for about 30 minutes and did
That's
a great
awesome.
job. So
That's really
Mike's
cool.
been a big supporter of the association. We did an ad with them. Michaels did an ad with them. Artera did an ad.
Oh, cool.
And it's been that they've been a great supporter. I mean, just big supporter. So, but let me just one last story on my YPO. I did an event in Salzburg, Austria, and growing up, I was born in 1960. So when I was a kid, the Sound of Music I just loved the Sound of Music.
Sure. It's a great movie.
So the chairman of this event in Salzburg was a guy named Peter Whitehead. He lived in the Bahamas, but his great aunt was a lady named Agate Whitehead, and Agate Whitehead was married to a Captain Von Trapp and had 7 children.
No way.
So she was the mother of the Sound of Music kids, and so he knew Auntie Maria for years. I mean, he knew
It's
her.
unreal.
So we did the opening ceremony of the Salzburg event on the stage, which is the final scene of the movie. And we had 3 members of the Von Trapp family come out and sing Edelweiss with the audience. I mean, it was just,
That's so cool.
one
It's
of those
unreal.
never to be forgotten moments.
Yeah,
Probably
I'd
dating
say so.
myself, and some of your audience may go,
No, that's really
"Who are
neat.
these
Well, you
people?"
did say you were born in 1960, so I mean, you kind of
You
threw that right out the
turned it
window.
up, yeah.
But
So-
so there's some great. I mean, we have
That's
presidents
awesome.
and prime ministers and kings and queens and all sorts of people. But it was
That's
just
pretty cool.
fun time.
So I guess my question and the final question of it all is, where do you see it going for you in the events and coordination side? I know you talked a little bit about even trying to change the February part, but man, I just can't imagine the challenge. Where do you think it's going?
I have no idea.
I figured that was going to be your
Nobody
answer.
else- and nobody else does either.
No.
And that's, it depends. And one of the reasons we went to Orlando, and people are like, why are we going to Orlando in July? It's hot. Well, to be all honest, it was the only state that was open, and I couldn't do Texas. There's nothing here. So you go to Orlando, you do an event near Disney. If people want to go to the parks, they go to the parks. If not, they just come to the convention and do it. But the state was open. So you've got to kind of look at where things are open, and our conventions are always in February, March, so it's a narrow band of latitude that we have to deal with. We can't go to Hawaii. We're trying to get out of Mexico. So, and I really don't want to go back to Florida. We've been 2 years in a row now. So
If you can arrange it so that
Arizona,
I
we're
can meet
looking at
Giannis again,
California.
I'm totally in. If you can arrange it so I can meet Giannis again, I'm totally in, Rob.
He didn't arrange it the first time.
Yeah, you got lucky. I'm kind of curious about that though. Like, there's got to be that moment when you're doing this that you're like, man, should we do this? Should we still do this? Should we still push forward with this?
Heck, we think about that, Joe, on this side as a vendor.
I was just going to say, we have two big events in the gas association industry that we belong to, Southern Gas Association and American Gas Association. One is in Orlando in October and one is in Charlotte in October. And it looks like a lot of customers or people are pulling back from that and saying, we're not going to go. We were going to go, but we're not going to go. And I just wonder from like, was there a time with DCA this year in Orlando where you were like, man, maybe we should just kill it again for this year and try again next year? Or were you guys full speed ahead?
Full speed ahead. Yeah. So
I'll get there.
Orlando, I was determined to have a convention this year. It was our 60th anniversary. I said, even if it's me and the staff and that's it, we're going to do it. And we got really lucky in our time frame in that it was right smack in the lull. Florida was pretty clear at the time. It was just starting to come back. So, the whole Delta variant thing. So it was, it was like, let's just go. Let's just go for it. We're hoping, we're the fall meeting is on. We've already opened registration. It's in Denver at the end of October. 20 people signed up the first day. So it's more, the contractors don't seem to have a problem traveling. It's more the associates, and some of the big companies are, the Caterpillars and Deeres had to go through approval process. When you get huge corporations like that, it's like, can we do it? All right, we'll send one. We usually send 10, we'll send one.
Right.
So there's a lot of that we're maneuvering through, and that takes into account, okay, how big is our room block? How many people are we planning for at the meals? So a lot of unknowns, but
there's a lot of logistics that go into it when you just think
there is, and it fortunately my staff is very experienced, and I have a lot of experience on the event side. So we've canceled events in Cairo before, so it happens. You just have to you write hotel contracts with excellent force majeure clauses and ways to get out of these things and move them around. And the good thing is the hotels have been very good at helping us just reschedule.
Right.
So we're now booked out through 2025. as far as the
that's
conventions
cool.
goes, because it just moved
Just shifted.
to Hawaii. That was this year,
downhill.
2024, and we just keep bouncing them out.
Well, I think the hotels appreciate that. You're not pulling out completely. They're still going to get their money eventually. It's just there's a situation. There was this little pesky global pandemic that happened.
Yes.
So,
And the weird thing was that a lot of the hotels, they unfortunately they furloughed their sales staff.
yes.
I can understand the banqueting and room service and all that stuff, but they furloughed. So we're dealing with director of sales who haven't booked a room in 20 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
Trying to work on hotel contracts that are new.
Right.
That was a real challenge. But I've got a good team that works through that. So we just keep plugging along and hoping for the best. And and just being flexible. You just got to be flexible. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If it's not, we'll make adjustments.
Well, I go to a lot of shows. I've never been to a DCA event, but I've only heard awesome things from everybody that goes, from Ted and from Dan Pajak, our owner, and other people that I know have gone. I just want to say thank you. We've done little small things during the pandemic, that we've tried to pull off, and like, it's impossible. So I can't even imagine, you use the analogy herding cats. I can't even imagine what it's like to try to get 600 people in a location and have it go off without a hitch. So thank you for doing what you do. We really appreciate, not just you, but everybody in the industry that supports that and helps us network with our customers and our other, peers. It's super important, and something that I don't think we all realized how important it was until COVID happened.
Mhm.
And we went, wow.
Took it for granted.
Absolutely.
This is something that we absolutely enjoy. I mean, I think 3 years ago we were like, oh, I got three I gotta go to, right? And then I was like, oh man, I want to go to that one now. So I think it's super important. I just want to say thank you for doing that, and all the time, energy, effort you guys put into it. Also, thank you for coming on our show. We appreciate and like absolutely love having every guest on, and some Some of the people we get to meet, like yourself, are people that we normally wouldn't in our normal day to day if this never happened and we weren't doing this show. And I get to learn a lot from people like yourself. And I think it's really cool. And it gives us all a different perspective of what goes on in everybody's day to day life. So from me, I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. And I really, really appreciate getting to know you and meet you.
Well, thank you. I look forward to meeting you one day, and it's been a pleasure. I mean, Ted is very persistent. I will say I think he was my puppy dog at the convention. You were constantly hounding me about this.
Yeah, he's well, we were gonna fire him if he didn't bring on some good guests. So
essentially what it came down to was like, they're like, Ted, are you ever gonna do anything?
Don't leave there without getting somebody.
Yeah. So
I was the last one on the list.
No, you were the first one. You were the last one to respond.
Yeah, it's just. I know after your daunting experience with the Coffee with Jim and James show, it was like,
or just don't lose this episode, please. You know, I really,
we were supposed to be recording this, guys. Oh shoot, I forgot to press record. Sorry.
I wrote them and I said, "Are you?" Because my son had worked for EWN, and
right.
So he was like, "Dad, I thought you were going to be on their show." I'm like, "I did too." So I wrote him and they're like, "What? Huh? Didn't we broadcast?"
I just love that because we're like such good friends with those guys, and they have one story to just give them crap about.
It's kind of funny because I knew Joe was going to ask you that question before when we started instead of how did you get in the industry? Because Jim was actually at his house an hour ago, and he goes, I'm going to ask Rob.
I wrote it down. It's right here.
That's the first thing you've ever prepared for.
I wrote it down. You were on with Jim and James. Tell us why our show is better.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Rob, seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for joining us. I know I really appreciate it, and I'll stop annoying you as much now.
That's all right. Keep
got the recording in.
I like your shirt.
I right here.
Looking good. Looking good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
I really
Rob.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.